Hey everyone, and welcome to this explainer. I am so glad you're here. Today, we're looking at the fascinating, honestly kind of hidden, dynamics of corporate ownership. Okay, let's dive into this by introducing a fundamental structural friction that exists right at the heart of the financial world. It's a friction between two entirely different types of equity sitting on the exact same balance sheet. You might think owning a share means you're just a standard owner, right? But the reality is far more complex and highly stratified than that.
Picture this. You've got a stake in a company. It's been a remarkably tough year. Earnings are way down, and the board of directors makes the really difficult decision to cut the dividend for everyone just to save cash. So as a regular owner, you check your account and you get absolutely zero. Nada. But then you notice this specific, quiet group of investors is still receiving their checks like clockwork. I mean, why did they get paid while you got nothing? Well, this little anomaly totally exposes the hidden, high-stakes rules of the boardroom. To answer that, we have to look at the structural fence separating two very different types of owners. On one side of the fence, we have ordinary shares. These represent residual ownership, meaning, yeah, you get whatever is left over, but you also hold the boardroom voting rights. You get a say. Now, on the exact opposite side, we have preference shares. These holders get fixed dividends, and they literally stand at the front of the line to get paid, but, and here's the kicker, they have absolutely no voting rights. They trade their voice for financial certainty. So while both technically represent ownership, they sit on completely opposite sides of risk, reward, and control.
Section 1, the apartment analogy. And this brilliantly illustrates how we can make these abstract financial jargon terms incredibly tangible.
To really grasp how this structural fence plays out in real life, let's compare corporate shares to something much closer to home. Imagine you and a silent partner buy a commercial apartment building together. You act as the ordinary shareholder. You're the manager. You hire the staff, you pick the tenants, and hey, if the neighborhood suddenly becomes the next big thing, you keep the massive upside and get incredibly wealthy. Your silent partner, on the other hand, is a preference shareholder. They don't get a say in the color of the lobby or how you run the building, but they have a strict ironclad contract dictating that they get the very first cut of the rent no matter what.
Let's put a hard number on that contract. Say your silent partner is guaranteed the first $5,000 of rent every single month. They get this before you see a single cent. Now, if the building has a rough month and brings in exactly $5,000, well, your silent partner still gets paid in full. But you, the hardworking manager who took all the operational risk, you go home completely empty-handed. That right there is the exact trade-off between ordinary and preference shares.
Section 2. Power versus predictability.
So why on earth would a board of directors ever choose to offer both types of shares in the first place? Well, it really comes down to strategic capital management. It's about balancing the desperate need for cash against the desire to maintain control. Notice how the voting power breaks down here. If a company needs to raise money and they issue new ordinary shares, that's that third slice, they bring in cash, sure, but they also bring in new voters. This shrinks the founder's slice of the pie. We call this dilution. And if founders dilute their control too much, they could quite literally be voted out of their own company and lose their jobs. So, to avoid that absolute nightmare scenario, the board issues preference shares instead. Preference shares act as a bridge between debt and equity. For conservative investors, they offer income certainty. But for the founders, it's a brilliant way to raise necessary cash without giving away a single ounce of boardroom voting power. It's a highly strategic move, though it definitely comes at a cost, because those fixed dividends act as a fixed liability hanging right over the company.
Section 3, Surviving Lean Times. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how it guides us into the harsh reality of what happens during tough economic periods.
What actually happens when that fixed liability collides with a bad economy? Surviving lean times is literally the ultimate stress test for this dual-class equity structure. If earnings drop, the board can just simply skip paying dividends to ordinary shareholders. Easy enough. But what about the preference shareholders? Well, many preference shares come with a VIP stipulation called a cumulative feature, meaning if the company misses a payment this year, it doesn't just go away. The missed payments actually accumulate as legal debts, and the ordinary owners cannot receive a single cent until those preference holders are made completely whole for everything they were previously promised.
As our sources point out, it stays on the books as arrears. Just think about the sheer weight of that word for a second, arrears. Missed payments don't just vanish into thin air, they stack up like an absolute legal blockade. And the longer those lean times last, the higher that wall of arrears grows, viciously squeezing the ordinary shareholders out of any potential profits for years to come.
Because the rules of who gets paid are so incredibly strict, managing these shares requires extreme precision. So the crucial point here is understanding the concept of Pari Passu, which translates to being equal in all respects. If a company issues new ordinary shares that don't qualify for dividends for, say, a few months, the back-office mechanics actually have to track them with completely distinct codes. They aren't pari passu yet. If you mix them up, you might accidentally promise a client income that technically does not even exist.
Section 4. The corporate pecking order.
So what is the absolute worst-case scenario when a business completely hits a wall, runs out of cash, and fails entirely? Let's move to and see how this builds down the liquidation hierarchy. There is a very strict hierarchy for who gets the remaining scraps. Step 1, secured creditors and bondholders are at the very top. Step 2, the preference shareholders get to claim whatever is left next, ranking strictly senior to the regular owners. And Step 3, ordinary shareholders are dead last. By the time liquidators work their way down to Step 3, there is almost always nothing left but dust.
Section 5. When the music stops.
Understanding this whole dynamic isn't just about learning financial labels. It's about recognizing the structural realities during critical corporate events. Whether that's an aggressive takeover squeeze-out or just the annual distribution of profits, ultimately, this conflict defines the true mechanics of corporate power. So the next time you look at your own portfolio or read the latest business headlines, I want you to ask yourself this provocative question. When the music stops, who holds the power and who is left holding the bag? Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and remember to always keep questioning the structures behind the investments.